It is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever is on your mind. Our number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We do have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms. They're open for you at discord.lrn.fm. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Richie Rich.
And Mark.
And a story about capital punishment. I don't know if I mentioned this on the air last night, but I feel like I might have. The state of New Hampshire is poised to join the list of states that is abolishing the death penalty. And it looks pretty good. It doesn't look like we're going to end marijuana prohibition this year, but the death penalty may very well be over in New Hampshire. A story from the New York Times. Concord, New Hampshire. Soon after the man who killed his father with a shotgun blast to the chest was captured, Rennie Cushing ran into a friend at the grocery store who said that he hoped the culprit would be executed so that Mr. Cushing's family could find some peace. I didn't know how to respond, recalled Cushing, who is now a New Hampshire state representative. He says, I knew he was trying to give me some comfort. Mr. Cushing, a Democrat, was then and is today a death penalty opponent. And in the 31 years since his father's murder, he has become one of the nation's leading opponents of capital punishment. But his efforts at repeal in his home state have always fallen short. On Thursday, though, New Hampshire moved closer to becoming the last state in New England. This was, I think, last Thursday. But anyway, the last state in New England to end capital punishment as the state Senate voted to repeal the death penalty. That followed a vote for repeal in the state house last month.
Do they use it often here? I'm not.
Right. This is the sort of the really funny part about this. I can't tell you exactly the year, and Ian might be able to correct me on this. But the last time they executed somebody in New Hampshire was in like 1936.
Okay.
And there's one person on death row.
And they don't actually have a death row. Maybe I'm wrong on
one
that. Maybe
person
they have a death
awaiting
row.
death.
They have an effective death row, and then they don't have a death chamber.
Okay.
There is no
really
electric chair.
How do they do the deed in New Hampshire?
They're not expecting to.
They haven't figured it out yet.
I mean, take a look at the death penalty across the United States. This is it's the definition of cruel and unusual, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were going to, like, there's unusual, but this isn't particularly unusual. It's certainly cruel, though. If you were going to pick the way to die, you probably wouldn't pick lingering around in a 4x8 cell for 15 years before, with 3 or 4, perhaps possibly 5 different attempts on your life that you're not sure until the final hours or days that they're not going to happen. Like this kind of constant, it could happen, it could not happen, it could happen, it could not happen.
Well, I wouldn't want them to do it immediately either, because then you remove all attempts at appeal.
Sure.
Or, you know.
I get you. But the Constitution's really, really clear.
Okay.
It says no cruel or unusual punishment. And what the death penalty has become in this country is absolutely cruel because it's the last form of death someone would choose. I would rather be tortured for a week, which is a terrible thing to have happen, than linger for 15 years on death row with like 5 different possibilities of me dying and, 5 different last meals, 5 different times telling my family, I love you and I'm sorry for everything I've put you through, this stuff.
I can see that.
And when you consider that people change and that all of your cellular structure changes in your body on average about 7 years, then you're actually executing a different
new person.
The wrong man.
When you do it. I've got so many things I can say about the death penalty. Now, look, I don't lose sleep every night about the rapists and killers that are executed in this country. Rapists and rapist killers.
But what about the innocent people?
Well, that's the thing. If you advocate for the death penalty, you understand that there is no human institution that is perfect.
Meaning there are wrongfully convicted people on the death row.
There are necessarily wrongfully convicted people on death row, and you continue to advocate for the death penalty. You are maybe not the murderer that you hope to execute, but you're no better than the murderer you hope to execute. What you're saying is that your beloved death penalty is so important to you that you're willing to execute innocent people. And I have to ask the question, how many innocent people? What is the ratio of innocent to guilty that you're willing to execute to continue to support this barbarous, antiquated system. Again, I don't lose sleep over guilty people being executed and put on death row in this country. I don't. But I didn't write Cruel and Unusual either. I'm all for shooting a murderer on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But, I cannot square the death penalty in my mind because I've spent too much time thinking about it. I used to be a death penalty advocate.
So what if there were evidence corroborated by a confession?
Why would you want to make it so that people would never want to confess?
I don't know. I'm just throwing
it out. That's what I'm saying too, right? So a confession gets you that much closer to reality, right?
Okay.
Like we're almost certain that a person who we've got all this evidence against and then confesses at the same time. All right, what about videotape, right? Or what about this and what about that? Certainly that gets us closer and closer and closer to that point, that 0 point where it's like this person is definitely guilty.
Sure.
And I get it. But is it worth maintaining the death penalty in the few states that it continues to be in for this vanishingly small group of people that continues to be found? Because most people who are sitting on death row in the United States are not there. Are not corroborated with a confession and are not corroborated with video evidence.
Just to clarify something you just said, I wouldn't call it few states. New Hampshire could become the 21st state to abolish capital punishment. So it's still the majority of states that have the death penalty. Again,
if New Hampshire does away with the death penalty, it's a state that hasn't executed somebody in nearly 80 years. Mm-hmm. The New Hampshire this is my argument against New Hampshire. My argument against New Hampshire getting rid of the death penalty is why are the legislators spending time and energy on this thing that's clearly not going to happen? It only affects one person.
Because it could affect someone else
in the future.
And beyond that, it's symbolic, and legislatures do symbolic things sometimes. I mean, they're going to be there anyway, so why not argue over this?
I think there's better things to argue about that can affect everybody's life in New Hampshire. I don't consider this important. I also don't consider it important to keep. Right? Like anybody who's standing by this in New Hampshire, the only way you can get the death penalty, or at least the way it was, I don't know if that's the rule now, but within the last few years, they would have had to have changed it. But, I know somebody proposed to increase the death penalty. I don't think they were successful either. I believe the rule still is that in order to get death row in New Hampshire, you must have killed a cop.
Interesting.
At the very least, that's the reason the person who's on death row is on death row.
Right.
Because he killed a cop.
What you have is these Republican conservative legislators who are like, support the police, right? And that's fine, support the police, but this isn't the way to do it. If you want to support the police, send funding their way or whatever.
What about...
That's not. This isn't about supporting the police. This is just keeping some dumb rule that nobody's using.
What about the death penalty as a deterrent towards those types of crimes?
I have heard that the death penalty. I've heard both sides of this. Right. Like, so there are people that'll claim that death penalty is a deterrent, and there's people that'll claim that it's not, and they both trot out statistics.
Or the serial killers that go across the country but land in states without it because they know they can't be executed for
they're right. So those people would be statistically significant. But is life imprisonment such a damn joy that, especially in American prison, mind you, is it so delightful? Is it like a little party and punch and cupcake party every single day?
You asked this as someone who has been to prison for 9 years.
I've been to prison. Prison sucks. And yes, some people will have some good times and they'll laugh and they'll play cards and they'll do some things like that. Obviously, some people find this distasteful that somebody's killed somebody and still does this. But there are countries in Europe where if you kill somebody, you only get like 10 years. Now, when I say only, 10 years is a long time out of your life. If a punishment is going to be a deterrent for somebody, then how much of a deterrent are you trying to achieve, I guess?
Right. These are good questions. We can continue with more on the end to the death penalty. I do feel like this is something that should be abolished, even though it isn't used, in the same way that I feel like all laws that are dumb should be abolished, whether or not they're used. 855-450, free like freedom. It's Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live, and you're invited to join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms. They're open for you over at our Discord server, discord.lrn.fm. Bitcoin.com, it's your premier source for everything Bitcoin Cash related. Bitcoin.com can help you choose a Bitcoin Cash wallet and buy some Bitcoin Cash, as well as show you where you can spend your Bitcoin Cash. You can read the latest news on their news site or engage with the community on their forum over at Bitcoin.com. Once again, that's Bitcoin.com.
Did you know that Bitcoin.com now has this Bitcoin Cash shuffle thing?
What is that?
Where effectively it's a money mixer.
Oh, neat.
Like Dash has, so an anonymizer, more or less.
Huh.
And because of the strength of the name of Bitcoin.com, far more people use it than
right. And the more
otherwise.
people use one of those mixers, the more useful it is.
The more effective it is. And so if you're running the mixer all the time, then you've got some pretty good plausible deniability that you're not doing whatever.
Good point. Check that out at Bitcoin.com. As we continue, we'll take your calls and thoughts. We were talking about capital punishment, the death penalty. The state Senate in New Hampshire voted to repeal said death penalty, and the House has already voted to repeal. And I do believe, in fact, the story here from the New York Times does point out that they did vote with the two-thirds majority to override the threatened veto by the governor, Chris Sununu.
Why would you even veto that?
Because you are beholden to the police.
Oh.
The same reason why he won't support legalizing marijuana, because the police are whispering in his ear saying, don't do that.
So no one's executed in 80 years, but the veto threatened.
Yeah, and he vetoed it previously.
Oh.
Right.
And another governor vetoed it, I guess, back in the year 2000, because it has also passed the House on previous episodes.
Right. I'm sure the cops in Vermont are really threatened by the fact that there's no death penalty there versus, say, the cops in New Hampshire. I mean, really.
Or Maine, because apparently this is the last in New England, you said.
That's correct.
Do the cops in New Hampshire really get together with the cops in Maine and Vermont and kind of dance around, jingling and shaking with their, gun belts and all this stuff, going, ha, 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 you guys aren't supported by your locals because they don't have a death penalty.
Well, it's a thing with the police to not let go of any power. They're not interested in having any of their so-called authority reduced. They want to be able to throw as many charges at people as they possibly can, and they will fight tooth and nail to continue with whatever stupid laws that they've been tasked with enforcing. That's why they've been fighting to keep marijuana prohibition for the longest time, even though the people clearly don't want it. So the police obviously are not doing what the people want. The police are doing what the police want to do. They come into these hearings at the State House in New Hampshire, and they lobby actively. They have paid officers whose job it is to come in and lobby for not only more government, not only more laws, but also to continue to enforce the ones that they currently have. It's sick.
You would think there'd be enough laws on the books where that wouldn't be a problem. Like if they wanted to get you for something, they would get you.
Well, I mean, they obviously will be able to do that if that's what they want to do, but they just don't like the idea of losing any grip over your life. At least that's my interpretation after having seen them testify a myriad of times against things like helping medical patients with access to marijuana, medical marijuana, for instance. Police will come right into to those hearings and go at it, trot out all the old claims. Luckily, we got it back in 2012, nice. Medical here in New Hampshire. And, of course, decrim happened as well. But there's more here. We'll continue the story. Your calls first, though. Let's go to Eddie in Virginia listening to WNIS. Go ahead, Eddie.
Hey, the other fellow was talking about cruel and unusual punishment.
Here I am. Yep.
As an objection to death penalty.
Yep.
But that was written way back when they hung people, they executed people. So I agree with him, cruel and unusual punishment. But I mean, is the electric chair cruel and unusual, or is
well, that's
hanging?
Not my claim. So I wouldn't say that the electric chair – I don't know, right? Like I would have to see some scientific study regarding the electric chair and the gas chamber.
There's definitely been failures and some difficulties with these methods.
Right, but as compared to hanging and, the guillotine, right? As I've heard, The guillotine is the most humane method of execution that exists. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm a guillotine man when it comes to execution. However,
not as easy as on the audience watching the execution.
Right. Well, that's the problem is that it's right. It's about the audience. I'm not talking about the method that you kill somebody. I'm talking about waiting 15 years and then like threatening to do it 3 or 4 or 5 times, issuing a couple of last meals, having the preacher man come in and give some last rites, having the family visit for the potentially last time 4 times, and all that stuff. That part is what I would claim to be cruel and unusual.
Cruelty, no doubt. They are to just bring them swift justice. And yes, some innocent people do get whacked along the way.
You think that's okay?
But if they broadcast on TV, if they show people getting hung or executed, that would be a definite deterrent.
I don't know about that.
Do you think the death penalty was used less often when they did have like the middle of town square where they'd hang somebody?
Public executions.
Hey, what about the Columbine guy who flipped out and killed everybody?
He killed himself.
You think if that boy had seen something that would have really happened to him for that, you think that might have given him a dose of reality?
I imagine somebody like that is probably not thinking much past the day that they intend to commit their crime.
Would you, how many teenagers do you think would sit and watch executions, or as they were growing up, children? Would you force them to? Would you force children to? Huh?
Everybody would watch it.
What?
If they had a broadcast of execution, everybody would watch it.
Do you think that people have bloodlust like you do?
No, I think they'd watch it. I agree with them.
Everyone would watch a murder?
Well, not everyone. Not everyone, but it would be turned into a public spectacle.
So, again, what you're saying, sir, is you're expecting that people who are willing to commit crimes, specifically, I'm talking about people between the ages of, say, 15 and 25, not exactly considered the group, the males between 15 and 25.
Not the most thoughtful bunch.
Right. They're not the ones that have the greatest foresight in the world, right? These are the ones
That's why they need guidance.
What's that?
That's why they need guidance.
Well, they're not going to get it from some television show.
Countries, look it over the Muslim nations, what they do to people, and they do it in executionary.
So you want to be more like you want to be more
like places are more violent than Western Europe.
Your hand off for stealing.
Well, I'm not sure they still do that.
No, they do.
So, Eddie, you're saying you want to be. I just want to be clear, Eddie. You're saying you want to be more like the Muslim nations.
I'm just saying that if you broadcast on TV what our laws were, execution, jail time, so the young people would see it, it would be.
You think young people watch TV? Okay.
I think young people watch TV. I just don't think that they.
Seems like they're on their phones all the time.
Well, no, I think young people think they're smarter than us, and that they're going to figure this out, and they're going to get away with it, and that whatever the punishment, it is meaningless.
Eddie, you said you're all right with innocent people being executed. You're totally fine with that?
No, and that's why they take so long. Like, you've got that whole system of.
Yeah. But you did acknowledge that some innocent people are going to.
They got all that, like what appeasals.
Appeals.
Yeah, appeals. So that's why they got 10 years of appeals, because sometimes they've wasted their whole life innocently. It's a damn shame.
But you still think that some innocent people should be put to death, right? Just because you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Right. More coming up. Free Talk Live has found that though U.S. financial institutions are prohibited from doing business with foreign gambling websites, it's not illegal for U.S.-based internet users to gamble on those sites. People have been using VPNs or virtual private networks to connect to sites like games.bitcoin.com and play games with Bitcoin Cash. Games.bitcoin.com features poker, blackjack, roulette, craps, keno, slots, and dice. You can conduct your own investigation at games.bitcoin.com. It's Free Talk Live. Dial in toll free. Bring up whatever you want here. Our number 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We have the toll-free numbers. Also, we've got the Discord on our call-in lines over at discord.lrn.fm. So jump into any one of those, and we will get you on the air with us. And with you tonight, it's Ian.
Richie Rich.
And Mark.
Don't forget about liberty.menu. If you are an individual who rejects the initiation of force and agrees to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle, you qualify to use liberty.menu. It's where you can put your voluntarist ideas into action and basically promote the thing that you do. Maybe you've got a business or more than one. Maybe you create content, audio or video, digital content for people to consume, or perhaps you're an events coordinator and you want other liberty-minded folks to know about the things that you do. Then put your listings up over at liberty.menu. They can be rated and reviewed. There's a bit of a social networking aspect as well, so you can connect and share with others. It's free, by the way, to use liberty.menu, so why not? Liberty.menu. As we continue, we will take your calls and thoughts. David is in San Francisco. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Oh, howdy, all. Let's see, a couple of things. I guess it's Happy 420 Day. But
that was yesterday, but close enough. Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing,
Ian's still celebrating.
I guess you weren't doing an ad. You were actually talking about Bitcoin doing some sort of an electronic. Were they doing a contest?
No, they have this mixer thing where they take Bitcoin.com has created this mixer thing where you can send your Bitcoin Cash, make it available to other people around the world, and it just kind of mixes it all together, like throws everybody's Bitcoin Cash into one bowl, and it mixes it all up, and then everybody gets their same amount they put in back out, but no law enforcement agency think about this. Red China can't go and say, or North Korea, probably a better choice. North Korea can't say, you have been using Bitcoin to buy things in the black market. We must execute you. Well,
they can do that if they want, though.
They can, but at the very least, they won't be able to prove it through the blockchain.
They won't have to. It's North Korea. If they want to execute you, they're going to do it.
Understood.
Anyway,
this
David,
is kind of like a randomizer of your account, even though you're going to start with one account, you're going to end with one account. See, what I'm wondering about with this electronic money is how do you create inflation?
You don't.
So in other
Actually,
words,
you do.
You can.
No, most of them are inflationary currencies because they're programmed to release a certain amount of Bitcoin or Dash or whatever it is we're talking about, whichever cryptocurrency, but let's just focus on Bitcoin. Right now, it's 12.5 Bitcoin every 10 minutes is released as what's called a mining reward to the miners. And this, of course, incentivizes the miners to participate in the mining process, which, for listeners that are unfamiliar, the mining process helps secure the network. It keeps things, cryptographically sound and make sure the money is where it says it actually is. So it's a useful process that needs to be incentivized. And so that reward is part of that. So the Bitcoin the total amount of Bitcoin in circulation is increasing until it reaches 21 million, and I think it's in the 17 million range right now. The difference, though, is that it is a predictable rate of inflation. So it's inflationary, but predictable, and it's not subject to... Yes, there's an endpoint, and it's not subject to political whims, so politicians can't get in there and manipulate it and increase the inflation rate.
There's no quantitative easing on the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and quantitative easing is a somewhat new theory, which back 100 years ago, when they had panics instead of recessions and instead of depressions, panics were all the time, and that was when people lost faith in the currency, and they had runs on banks, they had economic strife, and they first called them panics, then they called them. Trying to think where they was. Oh, I guess depression came after panics. And
well, imagine that people are losing. People might lose their faith in a government-backed currency manipulated by politicians, and that could cause some really messed up economic, reactions.
Right, the aristocrats,
especially on the
aristocrats of 1776, have always been screwing with America. So the idea that you remember when Lincoln was dealing with the Civil War, there was a currency backed by gold. Britain, and I'm trying to think of some of the scoundrels back then, if it was Cornelius Vanderbilt or some ass, but they were screwing with the vitality of the North, and so Lincoln added silver. That's where the greenback dollar was based upon Lincoln adding silver.
My understanding is the greenback was backed by nothing.
No, it was backed by silver, and it was based on whether or not No, it wasn't a silver certificate. They had just like they had the gold rush in 1849ers, right? So 10 years later, they found a huge cache of silver in Nevada, and was at Nevada City Mines, and it actually created so much value for America. It was like triple the value of what we had in gold. And so silver also was then used as an aspect of the treasury. And it was called the greenback dollar. And that Jesse James was there to steal it and Jesse James worked for the British. And he was there to interrupt the supply chain of silver and gold coming to D.C. And so the idea that you've had these scoundrels for centuries, or a century and a half, let's say. Well, no, centuries, because it's 1789. I mean, those scoundrels were trying to break apart America. War of 1812.
And which scoundrels are you talking about? Bankers?
These are British. The British scoundrels.
The aristocrats. And the aristocrats don't mean that they're chosen of God. They're just rich, fat cats that were born with a handful of money, and they don't want to give it up. And they paid for pirates, privateers. They paid for various trickery, sapping financial debt that would lock America into paying, becoming a colony to Britain again. If the fat cats, the aristocrats, bought all the bonds, for a brand new bridge or some sort of deal, that money gets sucked back to London.
I think, Mark, you were right here. This gentleman's claim appears to be false. The greenback was not backed by gold or silver, according to Wikipedia, only the so-called credibility of the U.S. government. So it sounds like you got a pretty important detail wrong there, David.
I disagree. It's very clear that silver was the strength of the greenback dollar.
Well, apparently
Abraham Lincoln had to pay for the Civil War. The gold was being put in jeopardy by some of the aristocrats of living in America.
Okay, well, the University of Texas Press, Greenback Planet, How the Dollar Conquered the World and Threatened Civilization as We Know It, is the citation, at least as far as the claim that these things were not backed. So,
David, perhaps there's some kind of wires crossed here, and we're just using terminology that confuses each other. So, why don't you go back and research whatever it is you want to say on it, and then call back with it and clear it up, okay?
I think in common parlance, even current money is considered greenbacks because the back of the bill is printed in green ink.
Yeah, but this is a specific note.
I know.
Greenbacks were paper currency issued by the United States during the American Civil War. They were in two forms: demand notes issued 1861 to 1862 and United States notes issued between 1862 and 1865. They were legal tender by law, but were not backed by gold or silver, only the credibility of the U.S. government. Now, again, I haven't read the book on which they are citing this. Obviously, two people yelling, saying one thing versus the other isn't going to be a productive conversation.
David wants to know if he can call back.
No, not tonight. Thank you for the call tonight. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And, of course, anybody can call in and make any kind of claims. And also, anybody can edit Wikipedia. So, I mean, I don't know what the real truth is about the greenback. So you have to decide for yourself, I suppose. So if you want to join us here, you can. We can continue with your calls and thoughts at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And you can bring up whatever you want. We got more on the death penalty coming up. It may be abolished this year in New Hampshire. They have veto-proof margins in both the House and the Senate. Are some people upset about it? Maybe you want to share your thoughts with us. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want. Our number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And just, did a little more digging. Didn't take a whole lot more. Just scrolled down the Google results a little bit further and found, believe it or not, they still exist. Britannica.com.
Oh, sweet.
Remember them?
The encyclopedia
people. Who here remembers encyclopedias? Okay, we all do. We're all old enough for that.
I used to work for encyclopedia salesmen.
Kids back in the day, before computers, there were these things called books, and they had these things called encyclopedias, which were these large collections of books. Encyclopedia Britannica, and it had a lot of information about different topics and things in there. You could look up whatever it is that you wanted to, in a lot of cases, and find out some information, some ostensible facts about those things. So here's the details from Britannica.com on the Greenback, because again, our last caller was claiming that the Greenback, which was issued during the Civil War, during Lincoln's administration, was backed by silver and gold. However, the U.S. government, according to Britannica.com, issued more than $450 million in paper money, not backed by gold. Now, it doesn't say here that they were backed by silver, but I think the suggestion there is that they were not backed by anything, because it doesn't say they were.
Full faith and credit of the United States government.
So I'm going to call our caller as wrong on that particular detail.
They also call people who want to return the power to create currency from the Federal Reserve to the federal government, two different entities. Mm-hmm. They call them greenbackers. So,
okay.
Everything I understand about what the greenback is and what happened during the Civil War and all that stuff leads me to believe that the greenback, as it was called at the time, was in fact a fiat currency.
We continue with your calls and thoughts. Sarah's in New Mexico, and we can continue with the discussion about the death penalty as well coming up. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, I have a theory about why our state, New Mexico, has such a high traffic fatality.
Let's hear it.
Hypothesis. Well, there's a tradition of reckless driving and careless driving because of the way that people used to drive 100 years ago, or the 1930s or the 20s, when we had like very when we had like 20 times or 30 times less cars and less population. So it's the whole attitude. There's nobody to hit, but it's no longer applicable, because we have like 50 times more cars, 50 times more people, and people are T-boning and getting run over, and drunk driving is a problem. Before it was not a problem.
Who's responsible for the current driver's education down there in New Mexico? Like, where do you guys learn how to drive?
I was, you know what? I have no idea what the
She doesn't know how to drive.
Is,
Okay.
So I do know how to drive, but...
You do know how?
Yeah, I do know how to drive.
Oh, well, how did you learn how to drive?
Well, I went to, driver's ed when I was in California.
Okay. So you learned how to drive like a Californian.
Well, the thing about it, yeah, right. The thing is, the New York State, they have 120 questions, written tests. Over here, it's 50 questions. They don't ask much.
Okay.
What do you think what is having more questions on the test going to do to reduce car accidents?
Presumably, you would know the more rules of the road.
Right.
I'm not sure how that.
Know clearly what the rules are. Well, if you ask somebody,
but these are accidents. They happen by accident. Things that are unexpected occur, like a drunk person stumbling out in front of your car. It doesn't matter what the rules of the road are. Everybody knows you try to avoid hitting the person.
Yeah. There's not a lot of roundabouts where I come from, so there's some protocol that I might not understand while going through one.
Sorry, you guys are talking at the same time.
If they have the green light, they could turn a right. They have the right to turn a right any old way, and they want everybody to run out of the way. This is the way that New Mexico drivers think. They're not taught to yield to a bicycle as a pedestrian. They feel like I could turn a right as long as I have the green light, because everybody just gets handed out a.
So you really think somebody needs to be told, "Hey, don't turn into that bicyclist," meaning don't run right into that person? You think they need to have that specifically said to them, that that's not inherently something that we would all do because we're humans and we can, at least most of us, unless they're psychopaths, can empathize with the person who's on the bike and think, I sure wouldn't want to get hit if I were on that bike. Maybe I shouldn't run right into that person. Or even if they're just completely selfish, they should be able to understand that, boy, I sure wouldn't want to get charged criminally for, hurting that person.
Well, it depends what the protocol is in your neighborhood, right? If you come from an area where bicyclists stop and let cars turn, versus if you come from an area where people are more aware of bicyclists, I can see where you would assume the bicycle would yield.
Yeah, see, I don't think that's a fair thing to do. You ought to always assume that the person is going to run right out in front of you, or the bicyclist is going to go right out in front of you.
Sure, that's a great way to be a defensive
driver. Treat these people
driver.
like they are absolute nut jobs, and then you'll be a little bit better off.
Yeah.
You know what? Why don't you come here and why don't you vacation here and get hit by a car, and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Oh, my life's a vacation.
Look, we're kind of cheap, Sarah. Are you going to put us up?
In the welfare housing?
But we need to tax the vacation dollars. Come out here and get hit by a car and get your legs broken, and you'll sympathize with me. Plenty of tourists got hit by buses here. The Australian guy got hit by a car from Clovis. I told you about the Australian bicyclist. He got hit from the back, and he got killed. This is what they get for vacationing out here.
Thanks for the call, Sarah. Toll-free number here, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733.
I can sympathize with her as far as, again, protocol, right? Because I'm relatively new to New Hampshire, close to 6 months at this point. And one of the first things that we learned, because it's different from Hawaii, is that if you're making a right-hand turn on red, any lane turning right can make that turn. Right? In Hawaii, it's only the immediate right lane can turn right on red. Yeah. So, we're like, okay, we want to make this right on red. We get into the rightmost lane, and the car left of us zooms around us to make the same right-hand turn, and that throws you off guard the first few times that it happens.
I see.
So there's different rules, different protocols, different regional acceptances. So if you learn how to drive in New Mexico, there's certain things you might be accustomed to that don't happen anywhere else.
I don't doubt that being the case, but as long as you're being a cautious driver, then it shouldn't really matter that much, right?
Yeah,
this is why we should have open carry. If somebody attempts to run you over while you're in the crosswalk and in the right of way, you should be able to pull your gun and shoot them through the engine block.
Well, that may or may not stop them.
Just saying. That happens a few times. If Sarah wants to teach people lessons, here's a lesson.
See, and as a pedestrian...
She's also anti-gun.
I know.
Yeah.
As a pedestrian, I've punched a few cars in my day.
Well, really, who came too close?
Sometimes you get a bang on a hood.
Who came too close? Yeah. Who came too close? Or like I had the hand was in my favor crossing the crosswalk, and they were making their right turn, and they decided that they were just going to make the right turn, and they got a dented rear quarter panel for the troubles, because I had the right of way as the pedestrian, and they weren't respecting it. And so I took a couple swings on occasion.
Yeah, mostly I'll let if they miss me in the front or the back, I'm fine with that. But if they're like right there and they're not paying attention, which happens a lot. People are on their phones a lot these days. I'll smack on a hood with my flat hand to catch some attention.
Sure.
We continue with your calls. Aaron is on the line in the UK. Go ahead, Aaron. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hey. You're on the air.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Mostly.
Okay. So I just wanted to talk about the death penalty and why I personally think it's a good idea.
Do you have that in the UK?
No, we do not. I think the last one was about 100 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe.
Don't
quote me on that. But,
all right.
But I mean, like especially how you said.
There's also no violent crimes in the UK.
Innocent. What?
I said there's also no violent crimes in the UK.
Well, there's more violent crimes in the UK than
no
London
guns and no
than
knives.
New York.
All that's banned.
Yeah.
Trust me, there's knives, all right. There's lots of knives.
Yeah, and a lot of people using them as well. There's still gangs. There's still violence. Yeah. So, okay, you said you support the death penalty. Why?
No, I don't support it. But I think it's just kind of like cruel to kill someone. Like especially it being legal and all that.
Well, it's not only cruel to kill someone; it's also especially cruel to kill an innocent person. And when the death penalty exists,
especially sometimes innocent people would just, end up on death row.
It definitely happens, and that is a place that the guy that called earlier was like totally fine with it. He was, a few innocent people have to get killed. We need a death penalty, so you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And, it's easy to feel that way until it's your son or daughter that's on death row as an innocent person. Then how are you going to feel about that?
The last execution in England and the UK were, that's the same execution, was of Peter Anthony Allen, 1964.
Okay, a little while back. Hey, Aaron, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE.
I'll tell you one thing that is not motivating to Americans is hearing somebody from Europe call in and tell us how we should do it.
Won't be Europe soon, right?
This is a special alert for business owners, consultants, coaches, folks planning retirement, entrepreneurs, and anyone who is saving and investing to build a financial future. You are likely aware that financial privacy for most people has recently died a miserable death. And let's face it, without privacy, there really is no security, is there? Bankrupt governments and banks on the verge of collapse are perhaps the biggest threat to your financial future today. The Lighthouse Law Club recognizes this and has been working diligently to provide safe, secure, and productive tools to ensure your privacy, your financial security, and your future financial well-being, despite the catastrophes which many people fear are looming ahead of us. Find out more with a variety of free videos on the YouTube channel for Lighthouse Law Club. Just search YouTube for Lighthouse Law Club and secure your future today.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We're launching into the second hour of the program. As always, you can join us here and take control of the airwaves at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We do have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. And to some of our newer viewers, just so you know, when you call talk radio shows, there's usually a screening process where somebody asks you what your name is and where you're calling from. And on some talk shows, there's more of an involved screening of like what exactly you want to talk about. I don't care about that. All I want to know is what your name is, where you're calling from, and you can give me one word, what your topic is.
And for the folks listening on Twitch, if you
I was talking about the new viewers on Twitch and DLive, yeah.
If you want to crank us, that's okay. Like, it's all right. You could just say, I want to crank you a-holes. And then that's fine. We'll explain to you how cussing on the air works. And this is really important. Young gentlemen. And I know that almost exclusively it's young gentlemen. So
we did have one female cranker.
Right. But she stayed within
really
the bounds of decency.
Right.
Okay. So let me explain to you how a dump box works. And I know you're not paying attention to me right now, but I swear this is going to be somewhat important information to you. If we push the dump button, our radio show travels back in time, between 3.5 to 7 seconds, depending on how we push the button. And the word you said about African Americans, or the word you said that about copulation, or whatever you're claiming to have done with Ian's relatives, none of that gets on the air. So crank all you want. Be funny. Don't cuss.
Yeah, and wait until you get put on the air, because if you do it while I'm screening the call, it's a total waste of your time.
Somebody cranked you on the screening process?
Yeah, they said I need to go to the gym and then hung up.
What'd you do? You tell them, hey, is that where your mom lives?
That's a good response, but they were already gone, and I hadn't thought of that anyway. But so anyway, you can join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Jim, probably not a bad idea, but I got other things that are more interesting and important to me.
There's many ways to stay healthy.
That's what I do. I don't claim to be healthy.
Okay.
But here I am. We continue here. I feel good. Let's go to your calls and thoughts, though. We got Ed in Michigan on the line with us, listening to WZTK. Hello, Ed.
Hey, guys. I just found you guys on here. I love this.
Welcome, sir.
So, the death penalty.
Tell me if you're actually talking directly in your phone, because you sound a little muffled.
Oh, okay. Maybe this is a little better, right? Everybody complains how I talk on my phone, so you guys aren't new. So the first law we passed in Michigan after we become a state was we abolished the death penalty, because an innocent, citizen of Michigan was put to death in Canada, only to find out later he didn't commit the crime.
Oof.
But I'm for the death penalty.
No, why?
We have better technology today than we've ever had. But you can't get it wrong. You cannot get it wrong.
Oh, you can get it wrong.
That hates it.
Well, you realize we're releasing people from death row still all the time, right?
True. I'm saying is as a society, you can't make the mistake of killing an innocent person. If you got factual evidence that puts the people at the crime, doing the crime, committing the crime, I don't.
Hold on. When you say actual evidence,
he's saying it's unacceptable, is what he's trying to say. When he says you can't, He's trying to say it is unacceptable to execute an innocent person, and then he's saying that we have to create a threshold where we only execute guilty people, which is a as they say in law, I mean, that when the legal system's run by angels, then we'll be able to do that. I mean, there's still a chance of finding things of somebody being an innocent person being executed, right?
There is absolutely there is, because it does happen all the time in the states that do it. But when I got videos of guys going in a store shooting somebody, that's kind of hard to dispute.
Well, it's actually getting easier to dispute. Yep. Ed, I would like to point you to technology online that is within the grasp of basically the average programmer now. So, a lot of people can do this.
The deep fake videos.
Right, called deep fakes. If you go online and look up deep fakes, you will be amazed by what some kid who knows how to program with his, mom's computer in his basement is able to cook up in a matter of hours as far as completely falsifying video evidence. So actually, we're in a time frame right now where anything that's on video has a big question mark right over top of it because there's no way to know for sure that it's real.
I guess you just blew my theory then.
Yeah, sorry about that. So let's abolish the death penalty. Thanks for the call, Ed. I appreciate it. I mean, that's one of the things we commented on recently, these deep fakes. You don't know what's real anymore. Not only can they fake video, they've been able to fake audio pretty well for quite a while. So that's way easier than video. But they've got video, and they've got it down, and it looks very persuasive at this early stage in this process. I mean, this is like deep fakes generation 1 we're talking about.
They're really good really early on.
So one of the few trials that we have in the United States is the felony murder trial. And the reason we have it is because prosecutors can't get anybody to plead to the death penalty, right? I mean, almost nobody will say, "Take me to the death chamber," and so the prosecutors want the big show trial, and they want all this stuff. It seems unlikely to me that prosecutors would, fabricate evidence a la the deep fakes as you're referring to, but that doesn't mean that it's beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't know.
They've fabricated evidence against plenty of people, or at the very least hidden exculpatory evidence against
many
a variety of people.
Have hidden exculpatory evidence. That's absolutely true.
And that's evidence that would get them off of the charges, just so in case people don't know what exculpatory evidence is. That's what that is.
I guess I don't.
That's because they're more than happy to send an innocent person behind bars if it helps their political career.
Agreed. But usually when they're willing to withhold it, I don't know. I guess it's very difficult for me to accept the notion that an adult would send an innocent person to prison when, just because it's the easiest thing to do.
And yet it happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
It's just so hard for me to imagine.
Ross Ulbricht?
Well, I think that with Ross Ulbricht, these people thought they were doing the right thing.
They always think they're doing the right thing. They may think that this
prosecutor that's withholding exculpatory evidence, how could they think they're doing the right thing?
Maybe they think this person's a bad guy anyway, and he deserves to go to jail. Maybe he committed maybe they believe he committed some other crime. Who knows what goes through their
Who knows?
Through
Maybe
their
he's
minds.
a closet racist, and the person they're prosecuting is African American.
Or they're just evil people who really don't care the damage that they do to people in order to. Maybe they're psychopaths.
Not even the prosecutor, right? Because there was, cops falsify evidence. There was a drug case a little while ago where the lab attendant was falsifying the lab results so that the prosecutor's office had positive results.
They got
for
convictions.
They got thousands of convictions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bizarre, but these things do happen. I must say, I worked with law enforcement for many years, and I did speak to them about planting fake evidence. Mm-hmm. And the one guy that I can remember having a conversation with, he's like, yes, I've done it, but I never did it to anybody that I actually thought was innocent.
Yeah, so there you go. That's the mindset of believing he was right.
His theory was that this guy was
violating
guilty.
the law, violating his own set of rules. One of the cardinal sins of law enforcement is, manufacturing evidence to put the wrong guy away.
Or the right guy for the wrong reason.
In his case, he did not believe he was putting the wrong guy away. He believed he was putting the right guy away.
Right. He had a hunch.
Yes.
Or maybe he'd seen something happen, but he didn't have the evidence on that particular thing. Who knows? But either way, it's not something that's supposed to happen. and it's not okay.
People take shortcuts.
Yeah, well, and that's unfortunate when we're talking about people's lives.
Especially when you talk about capital punishment.
Right. With
I don't want a shortcut.
Right. With capital punishment, it seems like a much bigger deal. Sure.
So we have more of your calls and thoughts. They are certainly welcome. It doesn't have to be about capital punishment, but that's the topic du jour at the moment, where New Hampshire may be the next state, the 21st state perhaps, to abolish the death penalty. And we can tell you more about that story as well. You're welcome to share your thoughts. Our number, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And there's the Discord call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. You just jump into one of those. We'll see you there. And then we will get you on the air with us, where you can talk about what you want on the radio. 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live, the live Sunday edition. It's Free Talk Live. You dial in toll free and bring up anything that you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've got the Discord call-in lines, which are unusually full at the moment.
All four of them.
All four of those lines are full over at discord.lrn.fm. It's I'm sure it's going to be a fun night here tonight on Free Talk Live. I think we might
be on D Live, pal.
I think we might be. I actually think they're coming from Twitch, Mark. From my experience so far, the D Live callers have actually had some pretty intelligent things to say overall. I don't recall specifically finding a really bad crank call on D Live, but maybe we just got lucky. I don't know. Anyway, since you bring it up, we are on these video streaming platforms now, and that does bring Free Talk Live to a different audience than we would normally encounter on, say, news talk radio stations, where the audience is probably over the age of 45, if not 65, in a lot of cases.
Yeah, AM stations tend to be 65 plus.
We got a bunch of FM translators now, though, so there is definitely a younger audience to our radio audience, but not as young as the people who are watching video game streaming platforms like
Twitch. The internet
Twitch.
Generation.
Yeah,
or the internet
D-Live.
generation doesn't know what a radio or the Federal Communications Commission is.
No, they really don't. And that's great. Good for them. You know,
and who cares?
It's fine. Well, I think it's important.
We have to care because we still do a radio show.
It's what's really important to note here is that you can't say certain words.
That's right. And we have to give them instructions.
That little potty mouth that you learned on the playground, gentlemen.
Right. And these guys are used to saying whatever they want on, like, you know, they're shooting
Xbox Live.
They're doing headshots or whatever.
Pwned, noob.
Yeah, whatever. They're saying way worse things than that over these these voice chat platforms that
talking
they
about
use.
each other's mothers.
Which is actually what Discord was designed to do. We're on Discord. We got discord.lrn.fm. That's our chat server. But the reason why Discord was made was to give people playing video games a way to have a pretty instantaneous audio channel open between the people in a certain game, basically. So if the game itself doesn't support audio like built into the game, you use Discord, and you can kind of meet up with your buddies on your Discord server, because anybody can spin one up, and then they just, you know, talk about whatever game they're playing while they're playing it. So
and you get so easily offended off the internet.
So we will go to the phone calls. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. Here it is, Free Talk Live at 855-450-FREE. We've been talking about capital punishment, the death penalty. Possibly New Hampshire may be repealing it. It's looking pretty promising. But let's go back to your calls and thoughts. We have Ray in Virginia listening to WNIS. Go ahead, Ray.
Hi, guys. It's rain, like the rain that falls down out of the sky.
Oh, hi there, Rain. You're on the air.
Okay. I'm sort of an anomaly. I'm a conservative transsexual.
Okay.
All right.
I am against the death penalty, but I'm against the death penalty on more of an intellectual basis than I am on the fact that someone has done a crime, or, you know, that we need as society to punish them. I'm against the death penalty because whether or not we are a spirit once we cross over into the next plane of existence, or whether or not we're a simple tachyon looking to rejoin the Creator, this life is not ours to take from someone, even though that person has taken another life. And if you don't give them the opportunity to spend their life, to think about what they've done, to be the person that they should be, because no matter where you are, you're exactly where you're supposed to be right this second. That these people do not get the opportunity to become citizens of whatever next plane of existence that we have, that we move to. If you believe in that sort of thing, I'm not saying you have to.
Mm-hmm.
But what I am saying is that most of us do. Most of us don't believe that once our life is ended here, that we're just dead. But at least I hope we don't, because that doesn't give us anything to really look forward to.
I think that we can all probably agree. Well, I'm sorry about that, but I think we can all probably agree that the human Homo sapiens as a species tend to be sort of believe in some kind of God. They're theists. They believe in some kind of supernatural aspect. We certainly don't agree on what it is, but they agree on something. So,
not by any stretch of the imagination do we agree on what it is. But do you not believe that we are more than the sum of our parts?
As far as I'm concerned,
I tend to agree with
there
you
is
on that,
a mystery out there, and I wouldn't propose to try to explain that mystery other than I'll explain to people how I view the mystery, but I will not tell them how they have to view the mystery.
Exactly. But also within that framework, if we take away that person's ability to finish out this existence here, then they don't learn nothing.
Ray, good call. I can't say I disagree with that viewpoint. Thank you for the call, because certainly people can change, even when on the inside of a prison cell. Though in a lot of cases, I don't think and I don't want to speak for you guys, but I think generally on Free Talk Live, we think that people shouldn't be inside of prison cells unless they absolutely need to be to, protect other people.
Yeah, a danger to the community around them.
Right. Otherwise, if it's some other crime that doesn't have much of a victim, or even if it does have a victim, as long as the person's willing to pay restitution and work to make that person, the victim, whole or the victim's family whole, maybe they don't need to be locked up forever inside a cell. But even those who have gone to jail or prison for violent crimes do not necessarily continue on a life of crime after they get out. And there's a lot of evidence for this. Mark, you're one example of somebody who's become a successful person and a family man and all that after spending some time in prison. I remember reading while I was in jail a People magazine article about a guy who shot somebody at a party when he was a teenager, spent however many years in prison for manslaughter or whatever degree murder that charge was, then ended up actually living with the mother of the person who he killed. Because
romantically?
No.
Okay.
Just as friends, because she forgave him.
I think I read that article.
It was an amazing story about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness.
I think that is amazing. I wouldn't propose to anyone that they forgive for any reason other than to make their life better.
That's the reason to forgive.
Yeah, that's a good reason. And this woman apparently really, really got it.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I wouldn't suggest that. I really am the poster child for prison, sadly. I wouldn't want to be the advocate for the system we have in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that taking bad people, putting them in with other bad people, treating them badly, making them feel as bad as possible, and then letting them out and expecting them to be good is a really particularly good system. But it's hard to argue that it didn't work on me. I went in as a bad kid. I may not have done exactly what they said I did, but I certainly did some bad things. And I came out, and life's been pretty good to me so far.
There's something to be said about the recidivism rate as well. Right, like you said, bad goes in. You put them with more bad people. They learn new skills. They come out.
Recidivism rate for adults incarcerated in the United States is significantly higher than it is in Europe.
Okay,
yeah,
I wonder why that is.
Because Europeans have taken a different prison model where they don't put people in horrifying places. They're more like dormitories you can't leave.
We got more on the way. You can take control of the airwaves here. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've also got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms, which normally you can get right into, but right now they're loaded up. So we'll get to those calls as well. Of course, your calls and thoughts about anything go here on Free Talk Live. It's the live Sunday edition. And again, that toll-free number, 855-450-FREE, like freedom.
You love Bitcoin. It's the future, right? Well, no, not if everyone stops using it. I mean, think about it. How many places in your town take Bitcoin? One? None? Let's be real. If this Bitcoin thing is ever going to happen, it's going to need your help. The good news is the guys at AnyPay have your back. We built a website called Help Me Take Bitcoin. helpmetakebitcoin.com. And it's a place you can send any business, and they'll be set up to take Bitcoin in 5 minutes. helpmetakebitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live. Just dial on in here toll free. Bring up whatever you want. Our number is 855-450 free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms. They're available to you normally over at discord.lrn.fm. They're loaded up with calls right now. Again, discord.lrn.fm. That's our chat server. That's where you can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners, basically at all hours of the day or the night. There's people in there because it's global server, people in different parts of the world, different time zones, hanging out, talking to one another, and it's free. So head over to discord.lrn.fm. With you tonight, you've got Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
As we continue, you can bring up whatever is on your mind. Our number again, 855-450 free. We go to the phones and to Daryl in Virginia, listening to WNIS. Hello, Daryl.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm new to your show. I'm
Thanks.
enjoying it.
Welcome.
4 quick topics, if I can just.
Oh my God! Pick one. Pick one.
Well, let me just run them back. Here, it's easy. This business of felons and the right to vote because they paid their dues. They didn't pay any dues. You pay the money back, the $30,000 it costs to house you per year, then you can vote. I think that's insane.
It's more than $30,000 a year if you amortize it out, especially in certain states. But I would say this: if you hold somebody against their will, you can't really charge them for the rate. This country. Before you go on, you made a point. I'd like to counter it. We fought a revolutionary war against taxation without representation. So if you're going to tax me, you should let me vote.
Well, they didn't pay taxes for 4 years in jail, but okay.
You're talking about me. I spent 8.5 years in prison. I've paid plenty of taxes since I've gotten out. And I didn't vote while I was in prison, but I should be able to vote when I get out, right?
Okay.
Did you pay all that money back to house you?
I'm not going to pay all that money back. I'm not interested in it. But there's only 3 states at this point that disallow it. The only reason that you don't want felons to vote is because they're going to vote Democrat. That's really the reason.
I don't care how they vote.
Really?
I could care less how they vote. I'm paying taxes to put them in jail. That's what bothers me.
Well, stop doing that then.
Well, shouldn't it bother you?
Most of them are non-violent people. They have they're in for a crime with no victim.
I don't care what their crime was. I'm paying for them to put them up in jail.
Well, wouldn't you want to
advocate for not doing that?
Right. Wouldn't you want to see fewer people put behind bars since it costs so much money?
Yeah, they shouldn't have committed the crime.
No.
You shouldn't be paying for them to sit behind bars.
Look, if there's a crime committed against a victim, then fine. Let's have that person who's a victim restituted by the person.
Good luck collecting. Okay. All right. Well, good luck collecting the money. Obstruction of
Aren't
justice.
you sitting here arguing that somebody ought to pay?
I'd be willing to bet $100 you committed a felony today.
Can I just go to the next subject?
No, you can't.
It's really important. Here in America, there are so many laws that you don't even know exist.
It's a punishment that doesn't cost the public anything.
What doesn't?
You don't get to vote because you're not a good citizen. Sorry.
Oh, wait a second. What evidence do you have I'm not a good citizen? Like, I'm 48 years old. I committed a felony when I was 17.
Well, you're old enough to drive. I think you know better. I don't know what happened, but
Fine.
you were 17 years old.
See, Mark, your life should be ruined for the rest of your life because you made a mistake when you were 17.
No, he just doesn't get to vote. It's a punishment that doesn't cost the taxpayer. That's all I'm saying.
But it's not an effective punishment for anything. Nobody's going to choose to commit a crime or not choose to commit a crime because they might have their vote taken away from them for decades to come. I mean, that's a pointless punishment.
I think it's a punishment that doesn't cost anything.
I got to admit, I'm curious to hear what his second topic is.
Well, yeah, hold on. I've got one more point to make. There are only 2 choices when you vote. Which one's the bad choice, right? Like you said, it's not about who they vote for, but when there are only 2 choices, basically, when you vote, what difference does it make whether I vote or not anyway? Because I'm either going to vote for the good guy or the bad guy, and there are lots of people who didn't commit crimes that are voting for the bad guy.
Who says there's only 2?
There's basically 2.
There's how many people
in a typical
run for
election?
there's local state elections where there's multiple people. Or
most people voting
one.
don't know who's running anyway, so they're just they're just Christmas treeing the exam anyhow.
The whole point, the point of the matter is, a lot of people get out early, including guys that were sentenced to life for murder.
Yeah.
And they get out early. I'm just saying, we, the public, paid for you to be in prison, 3 hots and a cot. This is part of your punishment.
There are 3 states in the union that disallow felons from voting, I believe, and that means 47 that allow them to vote. So where is this apocalypse of zombie morons that is somehow existing in this 47 states?
California.
Is a huge deal.
You're the one who called about it.
It's a huge deal. You brought it up.
Well, it's just one topic. You guys are beating me to death over one topic.
I don't want anyone to vote.
All right, you're wrong on this one. Let's see how you do in the next one.
Yeah, I want to hear the next one.
The obstruction claim against Trump. How come we never get we get 1 inch and a mile wide description of a topic? In 2001, when Clinton was up on impeachment for perjury and obstruction, 48 Democrats, 47 Democrats in the Senate voted roughly 100-0, no obstruction, no perjury. It was 96 or 98 to nothing. Now, tables have turned. Well, this guy's got to be guilty of obstruction. Clinton wasn't. It's a hypocrisy. What bothers
okay, you
me
have
the most
successfully identified some hypocrisy in politicians. Congratulations.
I concur with him on this one.
What bothers me is the media will not cover that part of the subject.
I think the media is butthurt about Trump. I think that Trump is actually a danger to media generally, but I think that the media is out after him at this point, and I would agree with you that beating this drum over obstruction of justice is pointless.
Well, wouldn't you say the media was also out to get Bill Clinton at that time? I mean, that was a real salacious story with the cigar.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that. My problem with the media nationally, whether it's print or television, whatever, we don't get the full. Let's get a little context here.
Well, have you read the entire Mueller report?
Good gore. I mean, who has?
I'm not reading the whole.
Nobody.
I'm not reading it either.
What am I going to read?
But if you want context, the report is out.
Do you think Russia interferes in every election and the United States tries to interfere in everybody's election?
I honestly don't care.
They do.
It doesn't matter to me.
Huh?
I said I don't care if Russia buys advertisements or advocates for one candidate or another.
I would like to know what interferes means, because this terminology of interferes when Russia ran some memes.
And what does collusion mean anyway?
I don't know.
Right? Well,
I'm putting him on hold. He keeps talking.
Collusion in this circumstance means that somehow Trump got together with the leaders of Russia or something, the political leaders of Russia, in order to throw the election or whatever.
2 entities conspired.
I think that looks really bad if he did it. However, the Mueller report apparently exonerates him. So whatever. I think that at this point, basically, Russia has become Democrat for Benghazi. It's just this partisan crap that makes people look silly by continuing to bring up. It's over. Just realize, when your team loses the game, you don't go in the bathroom and beat up the other guy in the bathroom stall because he's wearing the wrong jersey. It's over.
Daryl, thank you for the call tonight. You're welcome to call any other time with your other 2 topics, because we do have other people who would like to get on the air. We're going to get to them. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE, although I thought Rich Paul's story was interesting about his experience trying to buy a political ad now on Facebook because of all these new rules that Facebook has put into play on political ad, because they had to do something, right? Well, Rich Paul wanted to buy some ads to promote the 420 celebration, the civil disobedience thing that we did at State House yesterday. He wanted to pay Facebook to promote that event on Facebook, which is what you do on Facebook now if you want people to see things.
The only way to get them to see things.
Right, you pay them. So Rich was willing to pay them, but in order to be able to have Facebook consider the advertisement in the first place, he had to jump through a bunch of hoops, including Facebook mailing him a physical letter.
Wow.
In the postal mail with probably like a code or something like that on it. I'm not sure what the letter's contents were, but something to verify that you're a person with a mailing address. Okay. Mailed the letter. He got the letter. He went through whatever steps he had to do to do this, right? Okay. This is a multi-day long process, right? I mean, the mail doesn't come right away, so it took this long for him to get. So he finally does all that, and then he submits his advertisement for the 420, denied. You can't advertise a 420 celebration on Facebook, apparently. This is Free Talk Live. You dial in toll free, bring up what you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We do have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms. They're over at discord.lrn.fm. With you tonight, you've got Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
And yes, we do have video streaming platforms on which you can find our video feeds. We're still on YouTube. We're also on Twitch over at twitch.lrn.fm. And the newest platform is DLive, which is another purportedly decentralized video streaming platform, although there's some pretty big question marks around it right now. But it's good to be there because we're still kind of early on the whole DLive thing, so we might get some extra viewers that way. So it's just a way to get more people to experience this show and therefore hear the ideas of freedom, maybe for the first time ever. So you can go and watch us on DLive over at dlive.lrn.fm. And be sure you follow us there. We've got over 300 followers already in just less than 2 weeks at this point. The Twitch channel, we've got about 800 followers. So we've been there for more than a year.
Yeah, whatever P-Day was a couple of weeks ago.
P-Day?
PewDiePie Day?
Oh,
PewDiePie Day Zero.
I see.
That's when we moved over.
No, actually, we were there a few days before PewDiePie started his stream. Yeah,
Okay.
we got the word that he was coming, so we beat him to the punch.
Are we eligible for the main page of DLive now?
We've been on the main page of
Okay.
DLive. It's not hard to get there because
Okay.
there's not that many channels there yet. Unlike Twitch, where there literally are millions of broadcasters.
I thought there was some mature content issue with the...
We got unmatured, so we got
Okay.
taken out of the mature dungeon last week, so we've been good since basically like Monday or Tuesday. So check it out at dlive.lrn.fm as we continue with your calls and thoughts. You can bring up what you want. It's Dr. Robert. He's in Atlanta. Robert, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, actually, it's Martin, but it's all good.
Wow,
Hey,
they screwed that one up. Sorry, Martin.
Yeah, no problem. It was probably my fault.
Are you
Your guy
actually
was
in
awesome.
Atlanta?
Actually in Atlanta.
Okay,
I
they got it
stream
half
from
right then.
Yeah, I actually stream, depending on where I am. I'll be in different markets and hear that you guys are on the radio, or I'll look it up, and it's just, I stream it across.
Cool.
A little bit of a delay, but, I've had that off for a while. Love your show.
Thanks. What are you calling about?
We agree probably 50% of the time.
That's impressive.
So I want to talk about the capital punishment a bit, but before I go, I want to talk about the Robert Kraft thing, which I think was a total fraud, and I'd love for you guys to
Robert
hold
Kraft,
on that.
that's the owner of the Patriots who got busted for alleged prostitution, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
So I'll jump to that in a minute, but I was talking, and I know some people that have done time, and I've been charged with things, gotten most of those things dropped, and the charges still remain.
Mm-hmm.
The charges become a conviction if I try to go out and do anything where a background is required. The charge itself is a conviction, and I think there should be certainly ways that expires off with time and
yeah,
good
I tend to
behavior.
agree with you there.
But
and if you get caught for something else, too.
One of the conversations that I recently had was believe it or not, it was a humorous conversation, if you could have that, about the death penalty. But we were talking about the opioid addiction and how the seizures of heroin and all that kind of. And one of my buddies went, you know what? That may be the answer to a lot of things, which is you take, they've had conflicts about the chemicals that were used for death penalty, and they absolutely know the dosages of heroin that could kill a horse. So, for some people, one of the questions that came up at the bar was, for people that had done time, there were some people that had family that were in for life and that kind of thing, was, what if you raised the question to the guys and said, look, we'll give you a happy ride out, your happy ending, kind of like the Robert Kraft thing, but we'll give you a happy ending, but you raise your hand and say, hey, I'll go out the heroin way. We'll inject you, you go out, and it's a smooth way to go. And as a libertarian, you basically give a person the choice of saying, hey, I can spend the rest of my life in this 4x10 cell with these guys that are beating me up and raping me every day, or I can take this road out. That was one option, and it became actually an interesting discussion between finding out who was really libertarian and who wasn't.
So you're saying offer lifers a death sentence?
Not offer them the opportunity to check out, and if they want to take an injection, they can do that. But also the death penalty guys. If you don't want to go to the electric chair, which is extremely painful, people that have survived, it just cooks you. It is like being cooked in a microwave, but it's electricity. It basically bursts your heart and fries your brain. And one of the guys that was calling in earlier, he misused the term, it's cruel and unusual, not cruel or. So it has to be, both qualifiers. It has to be cruel and it has to be unusual. If it's cruel, that does not disqualify it from the legal sense.
Interesting.
So the heroin thing would probably never pass because it's not cruel, but it is unusual, right? In one sense, and people.
Well, it's not unusual.
No,
lots of people are dying from heroin in the United States.
Yeah, that's true.
But not by by the police.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I do like the idea of the heroin romper room for convicts generally. Like, we've got all the needles and heroin you'd like in this particular room, but nobody's doing any jump starting in here, right? Like the AED machine's broken, and we just don't keep it here.
Yep.
And you check out.
Exactly. So the Robert Kraft thing, here's the thing that bothered me about that from a police and enforcement side.
Yep.
And I used to have some engagement with the FBI.
Are you a former cop or something?
I am not, but
okay.
I was tied in. I worked with a lot of their field offices and that kind of thing, and was engaged in a situation where I had to report an FBI agent that was doing some things. And I had this guy pull me aside, and he goes, look, we have two kinds of attorneys inside the FBI. We have the by-the-book guys, and the by-the-book guy says you have to have some premise before you engage, and you know there has to be something that the person has done before you move to other steps. And he said the second type is called the can-do attorney, and that is when you're trying to figure out what you're trying to accomplish, they will help you figure out what you can do. And the time that I was involved was just after Mueller had become director and Comey was assistant director. I was in a meeting with Mueller and one meeting with Comey. You know, I didn't know him that well, but it was during that time that things kind of shifted to the can-do kind of approaches. But one of the things that really bothered me about the Robert Kraft thing was they talked about putting video cameras into these spas or this spa because they thought human trafficking was going on. Well, it turned out there was no human trafficking in the first place. But second, let's say that you put 100 cameras into any environment. How would you ever prove human trafficking with a camera?
I don't know.
Show people coming
Somebody comes in and picks up the girl and puts their hand over their mouth, I guess. I don't know. Something.
No, there's that would be perhaps abuse. You could prove abuse, but you could not prove human trafficking.
Right. You open up the back of the truck and you haul out 15 girls.
that doesn't prove human
could
trafficking.
Be a church trip.
All I'm saying
Who knows?
is,
well, not if you unload them from like the back of a semi. I don't know any church trips that load people up in the back.
So here's the discussion. So I said, what if somebody thought something was happening bad in a medical facility, say an OBGYN environment, and your wife, your daughter, was being videoed because some other person was suspected of doing something? Think of the guys, the gals that may have gone into this environment that were videotaped. They had no culpability in anything that was going on.
Right, but now the cops have records of their whatever it is that they were doing.
Not just records, they have pictures of them nude.
Right.
Those police officers got to see other people naked, whatever they're doing in there, good, bad, and I would personally suggest that whatever they did in there is their own business, and I would be perfectly happy as a libertarian to say, legalize it all, just like I would 420 stuff. But that's their business. It is truly, in my view, and I've had this argument many times, a victimless crime.
Absolutely.
Now, they want to tie it all the way back. They want to tie it back to human trafficking, right? Which is the false premise that they start with to justify doing something
That's
wrong.
correct.
So
they love to just label every prostitute as a human trafficking victim, and it's so not true. And I thank you for the call, Robert.
So not true.
Yep, I appreciate hearing from you. And now, apparently, I had not looked at any Robert Kraft news, but in headlines published this weekend, the spa video has allegedly been leaked and is now up for sale.
And that, by the way, is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, that another reason why you don't want this stuff being videotaped.
Right.
Is because, well, the government can't keep you safe. They can't keep Russians from interfering in your elections. They can't keep drugs out of their own
evidence.
And you want to give them the power to videotape what goes on in spas now.
Right, and then they can't keep a hold of it because somebody ostensibly has leaked it, and it is now for sale. I don't know if it's on the dark web or who's selling it, some hack group or whatever.
Don't worry, it'll be all over the internet.
Pornhub will bid on it.
All right, more on the way here. We got a full hour to go. Plenty of time for you with your calls and thoughts. Our number is 855-450-FREE. If you want to join us, that's 855-450-3733. And we've got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. This is the live Sunday edition of Free Talk Live.
Would you like to hang out with Penn Jillette? He's keynoting Freedom Fest this year. I, for one, am thrilled. Freedom Fest is the largest liberty-oriented gathering in the world. They take a Big Ten approach with libertarians, conservatives, liberals, anarchists, capitalists, and just open-minded people mingling together to hear real debates, share real solutions, and converse freely. This year's theme is the Wild West, a time of liberty and opportunity, or a time of anarchy and violence. Maybe both. Go to freedomfest.com/FTL and get your tickets now. freedomfest.com/FTL. Not convinced yet? Hey, I understand. It's a high-end event. Even with coupon code FTL50. Sure, you're likely to receive investment advice that'll make that sum seem paltry, but I have something special for you. Go to freedomfest.com/FTL and you'll get the 5 best speeches from last year for free. Call it a test drive. Do yourself a favor and go to freedomfest.com/FTL. freedomfest.com/FTL. Use coupon code FTL50 for a discount.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Hour number 3. You may take control of the airwaves here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And we've also got the Discord on-air call-in lines over at discord.lrn.fm. With you tonight, it's Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
We continue with your calls and thoughts. We started the show with a piece out of the New York Times about our very own New Hampshire, where the government here may actually abolish the death penalty. We can tell you more about it, and your calls and thoughts are welcome. We go to Larry in Indiana, listening to WGBF. Hello, Larry.
Hello.
Hey.
Thanks for taking my call.
What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I'm totally changing the subject here.
Cool, no problem.
But I'd like to ask all three of your opinions about one thing. And that is, because it leads to my what I'm going to say. Your opinions about shoplifting. How should that be handled by law enforcement, if you will, or by stores, or however?
I would say that the person who shoplifts, so are we talking about somebody who's caught shoplifting like red-handed? Usually that's how it's done, right?
Yes, either that or sometimes it's through cameras, and then they can get the license plate and go to the person's house and find them or whatever. Right. Whether they're found, the end result is they're found to shoplift.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I would say
a lot of times you catch them on the way out the door of the store, too.
Yeah, I would say that the best thing to do would be for the store to essentially be able to enslave them for a short period of time, right? Like, you got to take a broom out and clean out the parking lot over the course of the next 6 or 8 hours or something like that. Show up to work or whatever, and then no punishment. I think that would serve as a deterrent for the vast majority of people. When you're talking about serial shoplifters, I think it's going to have to be a different story.
Yeah, I would say that's probably level 2 for me. Like, if it's the first time they're caught shoplifting, just take back what they stole, and then just ban them from the establishment. And then you can bust them later for trespassing if they return.
I think that restitution is really important here. If somebody has stolen a thing and managed to get away with it, if they didn't get caught running out the door, they might have gone and pawned it or sold it to somebody or whatever to make a little bit of money off of it. The store should be restituted, whether it's with the object itself or with whatever cash value the object has, plus a percentage, because you have to employ a loss control prevention officer in the store, and that costs money. So there's effort involved, right, in trying to get that item back.
Yeah, but you could call loss control like part of the cost of goods sold.
It is a cost of doing business, but if no one was stealing, you wouldn't need a loss control person. So the person who
usually lost control is dealing with the employees that are stealing. It's my understanding
in a lot of cases, and they should pay restitution as well.
Yeah.
Whoever it is that takes a thing from another person, whether it's a store or whether it's an individual's home or whatever, ought to pay restitution to the victim, and that should include some sort of compensation for that victim's time and effort and the hassle of them having to go through retrieving whatever it is that they got. Even if they only just got out the front door of the building, they still ought to pay something.
So how much? Okay, so how much are we talking here? Because in my mind, when you ask the question, I'm picturing like someone who runs out with a Snicker bar.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, before I state this, because this is something that's happening in another state right now, is that I think we can all agree too that whether it's a Walmart or a Target or whatever grocery store, department store, or whatever, someplace else that is also reflected in higher costs throughout that, if it's a nationwide chain, through the profit and loss. The loss is reflected in higher costs to customers. If it's stolen in Maine, it's reflected in the cost of Florida.
Correct.
Okay. Well, in Dallas, Texas, the Dallas DA, a guy named John Caruso, is refusing to prosecute any theft of necessary items.
I heard about this.
$750. And here's his reason, and I quote, "Criminalizing poverty is counterproductive for our community's health and safety." Then he goes on to say, unless the evidence shows that the alleged theft is for economic gain. Here's my point. Whether that person takes that item, that television or that, whatever it happens to be, out, sells it for economic gain, even if it's for food or a shirt or clothes or things like that, that is still economic gain for that individual, because that person successful in that theft then does not have to purchase that item.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, this is a ridiculous
$700
position from, I forget where I heard this story the first time, but it was, I think, over the weekend somebody told me about it. Maybe it was on the air, but the idea that, if it's under this amount of money and you're hungry, so no problem, we're not going to prosecute that.
We live in a wealthy country. No one should go hungry.
It's an outrageous statement. I suspect it's coming from the idea that they just have so many cases that they just don't have enough resources to prosecute.
No,
in a
this
lot
is
of cases.
this is a clear.
Well, no, this is you listen by his quotes. That's because he says that criminalizing poverty is counterproductive.
I hear the quotes. I understand what the quotes
Ian,
say.
This is a political move, plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
The number of people in the United States that are apprehended for shoplifting, that are stealing beans and rice, is vanishingly small. Okay, you might find somebody shoving a prime rib down their pants, but they're not doing it because they're hungry. Okay, they're doing it because they want to eat prime rib. If you're stealing because you're hungry and you're stealing, I don't know, Wonder Bread. I don't know how you shoplift that exactly, but I'm sure it's been done. Okay, then the store manager has an opportunity to give you some bread that is, just a little past date or whatever, and send you out the door. Look, we'll figure something out for you and get really good press. But of the percentage of people who are shoplifting in the United States, I'd be willing to bet that is below 1%.
So you think he's just doing it to get elected? Basically?
Yeah, it's a bald-face election move.
This individual, if we're looking at politics, this individual does happen to be a Democrat. And in the past, I can't give you names because it's been a number of years, but another Democrat, I think mayor of a city or something, said, let people steal. Let them steal. And another person, when there were riots and there were things being burnt down and trashed and everything like that during when they had their what they call rent-a riots or rent-a mob type of thing, where it was either mayor or DA or something of a location, said give them room to destroy. That was also a Democrat.
What if you just move the responsibility over to the shop owner for protecting their own goods and services? And what would happen if they wouldn't rely on the police department to catch, apprehend, and prosecute, and just Walmart justice?
Well, yeah. Well, it depends on what kind of Walmart justice you're talking about, because
I don't know. Would it
there's
be
a lot of these department stores, Walmarts, and things too. Those employees are told not to confront those individuals.
Well, because at the moment there's another agency to handle that, but if the agency isn't willing to.
Well, hold on. I mean, they may tell that to their employees, but is that what they tell their loss control department? Because usually the reason why an employee is told that is because if you confront an individual within the store, if they, let's say they put, a pack of cigarettes in their, cigarettes are usually locked up, but let's say they put some item in their back pocket or whatever, and they're walking around the store, and you see them do it as an employee, you're like, my God, this person is going
to steal.
He's going to shoplift.
He's a stealing guy.
If you, confront that person before they have attempted to actually leave the premises, that customer, even if they were intending to steal, could say, oh, wow, I was going to pay for it.
Right. There's nothing particularly wrong with sticking something in your pocket and then walking up to the cash register, pulling it out of your pocket, and paying for it.
It looks untoward.
It's not. Yes. It's not great, but
they give you baskets.
As long as you pay for it before you leave, it isn't actually stealing. So they usually will just tell the employees a blanket look. Yeah. If you see something, tell the loss control about it, but keep an eye on the person, but don't actually confront them, and then let loss control handle the actual confrontation, which they will wait until that person attempts to leave, and then they grab them.
Or the parents that open up the food or juice for their hungry child while they're still in the store.
Sure. Yeah, it's bad PR to go up and accost a customer. At that point, you don't know for sure what they're going to do, and it's just a bad idea. Larry, good question, good call tonight. Thanks for sharing.
He had one point on that, though.
Oh, sorry. 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. Got a lot of folks who want to get on the air here. We're going to take your calls and thoughts about whatever you want, whether it's shoplifting or the death penalty or whatever happens to be on your mind. You can take control of the airwaves here on this live Sunday edition, 855-450-FREE. And if you didn't get enough time to say what you wanted, we're on every single night of the week. It's Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. You bring up what you want right here. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Forkfest 2019 is coming up just 2 months away at this point. June, a little less than that. June 13th through the 18th. It's going to be happening in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire at Rogers Campground. Free Talk Live will be broadcasting from the event, and we will look forward to seeing you there. It's a decentralized libertarian camping festival, and that means that there's no board of directors, there's no central control. You decide what you do when you're at Forkfest. You just want to hang out and camp with other like-minded, liberty-oriented people, or do you want to create something for those campers to do while they're there? If you want to put on a show or musical performance, throw a poker game, board games. I think Taryn Lupo's asking people if he should bring some like classic board games and do like a board game night.
Sounds like fun.
So like there's a bunch of people doing whatever it is they're called to do. So it's up to you what you do and what you bring to Forkfest. Go to forkfest.party. You can learn more about the event there. It's of course an unofficial site. There's no tickets for this event. All you have to do is just book your campsite or your RV site through Rogers Campground. And yes, they do have a motel on the premises as well. There's the Forkfest Telegram chat room and the Forkfest forum on which you can connect with other people who plan on attending as well. It's forkfest.party. Again, June 13th through the 18th in beautiful New Hampshire. As we continue, we'll take your calls and thoughts about what you want. Let's go to Carbon on the line. He is on our Discord server calling from Alabama. But Carbon, you got to unmute your microphone. Otherwise, we won't be able to hear you. There you are. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on?
We're on the radio, and so are you now. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Alrighty. So, like I was telling you, I just recently moved to Alabama about 3 weeks ago, and it's a proven fact. Well, not really proven fact, but it's a pretty known fact that Alabama's known for racial stuff. Now, I've realized over my time here that not honestly, completely honest, there's the main thing was African Americans, and I've realized.
Hey man, you gotta quit clicking the mouse. It's really loud on your microphone. Just so you know, there's something that's creating a little bit of feedback. Just so you know, I don't know if it's your headphones that are too loud or whatever. Okay. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry, you were saying about Alabama and its racist history.
Yeah. So what I realized is honestly, a lot of people will still complain about Alabama still being, very just. Prejudiced and very racist, but I've realized over my time here that there's honestly, I've been to a couple of states, maybe like 6 or 7, but there's more African Americans here than any other state I've ever been to, which you would think that, You would think that since this state's known for its racial tendencies, there wouldn't be that many here. So I was going to get you guys' opinion on that.
I've always wondered if the South is more bigoted, and people say it, so I can only presume it's true. I am from the South, and things were certainly different there than they are here in New Hampshire. But if it was true, then why do the people who are the objects of this hate stick around? I mean, it's been 150-something years.
Economic mobility.
Carbon, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you. We'll continue the discussion here. I've heard the opposite's the case. Remember maybe it's probably several, if not more than several years ago, there was a letter to the editor that was written to the newspaper here in Keene, New Hampshire, where we live in New England, that was written by a woman who actually happened to be from our hometown, Mark, of Sarasota, Florida.
Yep.
And she described herself as a black woman from Sarasota, and she had been living here for some amount of time. And she claimed she experienced more racism on the streets of little old Keene, New Hampshire, which is purportedly a left-leaning, welcoming kind of hippie community or whatever. But she claimed she experienced more racism here than she did down in Florida.
Did she describe the racism that you can recall? I'm catching you on the spot, I realize.
It's just people saying things to her on the streets.
Like
apparently.
the N-word and stuff?
I don't know exactly what it was, but something that she felt uncomfortable about to the point where she quit. She left New Hampshire and went back down to Florida, and she sort of left that letter as her final goodbye to the area. Now,
I've talked to some black people in Keene that, say that there's a certain level of ignorance up here where there just aren't that many black people, but
that plays a role. That has to play a role.
What's that?
If you're not in an environment where there's a lot of black folks or minorities, I think you have the expectation to interact a little bit differently because they're different. They come from a different culture. There's different expectations. Whatever the reason happens to be, we're in a state that's 95 or close to it % white. And there's just not a lot of minorities to interact with.
That was the opinion that so that was one lady, right, that wrote a letter to the editor. There's somebody else who I met who is a black person who grew up in Keene, a gentleman, and I'd asked him, and he gave a similar story as what you said, Mark. He said that when he was growing up here, so he spent more time here than this lady, went to the high school in the area, and, of course, you go into high school, you expect it's going to be the worst there, right? Like, that's where people treat each other the worst, generally. And he said he did not have an experience where he felt like he was being discriminated against or that people were being racist towards him because he was black. He felt like there was some awkwardness, but it was because people had never seen a black person before. Literally, he was the first black person that these people had seen outside of a movie theater,
right.
Like on a television screen or something like that.
And I think that awkwardness can be received as racism.
It could be, but this woman claimed that people were literally saying things that were rude to her.
Okay.
So, I mean, everybody's experience is different.
Saying something that's rude and saying something that's ignorant, I don't know. I mean, I've heard people interpret "let me touch your hair" or something as rude. And well, is it rude? Yeah, I guess it's rude. Is it ignorant? Most assuredly, it's ignorant. Is it racist? No, it's not racist.
No, definitely not.
It's just ignorance.
So, everybody has their own different opinions, and I'm sure there's plenty of just blatant racism down in the South, too. So, I mean, everybody's got their own perspectives. They've had their own experiences, and I don't want to deny any of it.
Sure.
Whatever somebody tells me, I can't tell them that didn't happen to you,
Right.
So,
but you are responsible for how you receive the information and how you interpret it.
And you can be skeptical, certainly.
Yeah.
Some people have an agenda. And regardless, I think we would all, at least on this show, like to see racism go away. That we wish it were gone already, but unfortunately, it's not. People still divide people based on the color of their skin, and that's unfortunate because it's one of the most ignorant things that you can do. Because each person should be judged individually by their own actions and the words that come out of their mouth. Let's continue with your calls and thoughts. We have Jonathan calling us from Detroit, watching us online. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're on the air.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what's your...
LRN.FM.
Word starting with the N, letter N that we can't say on.
Oh, okay. I'll go with Mayday.
It was a poor recording of it if that's what was said.
There's apparently this thing where people will turn up their their modulation real loud on their microphone. It's called ear rape, I guess. So sometimes we've had people call and do that to us on occasion. Let's just point out that if you're going to try to scream something into the phone, that's not what that was, but it might have been some sort of ear rape attempt. We're not going to let that go out over the air either. We're going to hit the dump button on that too.
Yeah,
we're just going to treat it as though it's something that most people wouldn't want to hear.
Also, it doesn't hurt our ears, even though we have headphones on. We have extraordinarily expensive equipment to keep that kind of stuff from happening.
All right, so we continue. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. That dude waited quite a while, by the way, for that.
Right.
He was on hold for
3 seconds of fame.
40 minutes. Yeah, I don't know if he even made it out at all because we dumped him. 855-450 free. Maybe his first couple words did. 855-450-3733. Yeah, we're prepared for this stuff, guys. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
Did you know you can legally exit the U.S. federal income tax system? Well, it's true, and thousands of American nationals are doing it. The 16th Amendment and the Internal Revenue Code are legal, but only in a limited jurisdiction. This is the basis behind the voluntary nature of the income tax. Learn the exit strategy provided by Congress. Find out more by visiting weissparis.com and watch our numerous videos. That's WEISS Paris.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free, bring up anything that you want. Our number here is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. We've got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms. They are loaded up right now over at discord.lrn.fm. With you tonight, it's Ian.
Richie Rich.
And Mark.
We continue. We'll take your calls, your thoughts about what you want on this live Sunday edition. We started out the show with a story out of the New York Times that New Hampshire, its state Senate and House have voted with a 2/3 veto-proof margin to abolish the death penalty. Now, it's happened twice before, in the year 2000 and again in the previous year, where both chambers have voted for the repeal, only to be blocked by a governor's veto. Hours after the vote, an aide to the governor said that he still intends to veto the bill, but given the margin of the Senate's vote on Thursday, which was 17-6 in favor of ending capital punishment, it appeared unlikely that a veto would survive an override vote. The House also had the veto-proof margin at 279-88. So these are pretty decisive votes in favor of ending capital punishment.
I wouldn't break out the dancing shoes yet. So first off, my opinion is that when people see people vote a certain way when they expect something to pass, but they'll vote another way when there's it might be close. So if the governor does actually go and veto, some people may defect to the other side.
That is true.
One way or the other, depending on how things go. So there may be Republicans out there, for instance, that are choosing to vote against this now that would vote for it if it was vetoed, simply because they had their finger in the air and they said, oh, yeah, this is definitely going to pass, so I might as well look good as a Republican voting against it, good to my constituency or whatever. And there may be Democrats that say, well, I was going to vote for this to look good as a Democrat, but I really don't believe whatever their claim is. So you never know.
Yeah, they got to go back and argue it after the veto comes through. And like you said, there will be defectors, possibly.
All right, so you can bring up anything that you want. We're going to your phone calls and thoughts. We have Charles on the line in Oklahoma, watching online. Go ahead, Charles. Hello, Charles.
LRN.FM.
Our free number here is 855-450-FREE. I'd like to remind our board operator to not hit the dump button unless he maybe muted him. I presume our board op muted him first. There's a certain order of operations that needs to happen to make sure that things like that don't get on the air. So we continue here, 855-450-FREE. We go to Nicholas on
By the way,
line.
that guy doesn't kill grapes.
Actually, you know what? Stand by, Nicholas. We're going to come right back to you here. So, again, talking about the end of the death penalty. If approved, New Hampshire will become the 21st state to get rid of the death penalty, continuing a national trend toward fewer executions. Bills to limit the applications of the death penalty or to repeal it have also been introduced in at least 18 states this year. With the suspension of capital punishment announced last month in California, most people in the U.S. now live in places where the death penalty is either outlawed or subject to a moratorium, according to Robert Dunham, the executive director of the Death Penalty Information Center, which is a Washington, D.C. nonprofit. In 9 states, he added, repeal bills have significant Republican sponsorship or support, and in New Hampshire, too, the debate has not fallen along party lines. The House was controlled by the Republicans during the 2000 vote to repeal it. And at that time, it was a Democratic governor who vetoed that legislation, Jeanne Shaheen. In some recent years, Republicans in the state have changed their stances on the issue and now favor abolishment. Some have cited the more than $5 million the state has spent on prosecution and defense of the state's only current death row inmate as part of their reasoning for the change.
That's an expensive prisoner.
Sure is. And at the same time, some Democrats still back capital punishment.
Yes. That guy is still winning against the taxpayers of New Hampshire. Like, you know, here's a guy who clearly didn't care about you people, and now you're having to pay all this extra money for his mandatory appeals, his special incarceration, his special, stuff. And at some point or another, if they actually do kill this guy, you'll have to pay the money to build the thing to kill him because it doesn't even exist yet.
Could they outsource it? Could they send him to another state?
They can't do anything when it comes to death penalty. Death penalty is so rigid.
Okay.
Like, you couldn't even... these states that are trying to, so the drug companies aren't making the stuff that you shoot, the lethal injection stuff anymore.
Right.
They have nothing to kill these people with. I mean, you can't give them a lethal dose of heroin, which would be a nice way to go out, comparatively. You just can't do it.
All right, let's get Nicholas on the line here. I think the issues are wrapped up with the phone lines. Nicholas, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. How you doing today?
Good. You're calling, listening to KTEL out there in, are you in Washington or Oregon?
No, I'm in Oregon. I'm in Prineville, Oregon.
Excellent.
Little Prineville. It's a great town.
Thank you. Thanks for calling. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking my call. So I wanted to share something with you guys, and I hope you have an open mind. I mean, this isn't what you guys do. I'm sure you have to. So I've been really building on a powerful vision that I have that I like to call hidden angels.
Hidden
angels.
What this
is hidden angels, yes. And so I've been really working on this, putting this thing together. I've been doing a lot of research and putting some statistics together. I'm really wanting to do a TED Talk eventually when I have all my ducks in a row. So really what it is I just wanted to hopefully share with the nation about mental health, addiction, and just, where our society is going, through politics, so many things, we're heading kind of like toward a negative direction.
Sure.
And with technology being the way it is, powerful as it is, with social media and so on, I mean, we can start connecting the world through mental health and uniting people in ways that could literally, evolve our society in an innovative way. And what I mean by that is if you look at technology the way it is, you look at Google. What does Google do? Google tracks everything you do, right? They track every move you make. They track, the sites that you visit, how often you visit those sites, and so on. You go to YouTube.com, it's the same thing. YouTube, it goes off your history, offers videos that, pertain to you. So my point is that if we come together as a society and instead of shouting down on those people that are dealing with mental health, give them a way to come out of the dark, come out of the light, and let them know that it's okay to face, their challenges and connect people in a way where we can involve the government, we can involve organizations, we can involve Hollywood, we can involve massive corporation companies like Google, Facebook, where we can get these people on board and help somebody in mental health in a way where, like, let's say they're dealing with addiction. We have a community come together and they help this individual. They don't necessarily tell the individual what they're doing, because if they do, then the individual will actually make the decision for the wrong reason, and he won't change because he wants to change for himself.
That's why they're a hidden angel.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean that we can't come together and push them in the right direction and lay a path for them. And ultimately, it's up to them to make that choice to take that path.
What do you see the goal of the hidden angel to be, or the responsibility? Like, if I wanted to be a hidden angel for a mental health patient.
Great question. So basically, the ultimate goal is that, let's say you have somebody out there that's dealing with mental health, dealing with disorders. They're in a position where they've been raised a certain way where they don't know how to go out there and be a regular person in society, because maybe they were grown up in a broken home, or they didn't have a father to teach them what it means to be a man or have integrity, or knows what it means to earn that respect, or even knows what the meaning of love even is. So you have an organization come together, you have these hidden angels do this on a scale where it's being maybe even televised, or whether that's through social media or whether that's through internet. You can have Hollywood actors come together with algorithms after they're watching this person and watching his patterns, what videos he's watching on YouTube, what videos connect with them. And then you can watch them through, and it kind of sounds a little crazy, but
so social engineering of a mentally challenged person, or someone suffering from a mental illness.
I'm not sure where that's going. Do you want to keep him?
Up to you. I'm
Free
trying to
Talk
figure it out as we
Live,
go along, too.
855-450, free like freedom. You can bring up what you want. It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free, bring up whatever you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We may have time to get you in here with us in the studio, including me, Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
And also, you can join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com. And by the way, thanks to Tom, who is a Free Talk Live Gold amplifier, meaning Tom gives a $10 a month to the AMP program. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. And that is where you can go, amp.freetalklive.com, to get behind what we do here on Free Talk Live. We talk about freedom on the radio 7 nights a week, live every single night. We don't take time off for holidays. We're here. It's Easter, right? We're here.
It is Easter.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I forgot to mention that earlier.
Not that people celebrate deeply late into the Easter. I think that I always felt like Easter was sort of over at 10 a.m.
But I suspect a lot of people take the day off.
Oh, sure. It's Sunday, too.
Right?
Hard-boiled eggs and hot-crossed buns.
So we are here, and we take your calls. We talk about freedom. But please, go to the AMP program at ampamp.freetalklive.com. That's amp.freetalklive.com, and get signed up with PayPal, credit card, or Bitcoin, BTC, and you'll get access to some cool perks and some benefits as a Free Talk Live amplifier at amp.freetalklive.com. I'm still not real clear on what Nicholas was saying there in Oregon, listening to KTEL. So it sounds like you want people to come together in a way that they have never necessarily worked together to help people with mental health issues. Is that right? You want corporations, individuals, governments to do something differently, basically?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I know it seems really kind of out there, but just bear with me. So the main thing I really want people to think about here is that once something like this took place, think about all the people around the world, all corners of the earth. Think about all the inspiration that it would fill in the hearts of nations all over the world, seeing a community come together, not just maybe for one individual, but maybe a group of individuals.
Do you think it's easier to come together as a community on a smaller scale, like immediate friends and family of the person who is troubled, rather than, the overarching corporations and big government of America attempting to fulfill the same role?
Right. And you're absolutely right. I completely agree.
Is the idea here that people are slipping through the cracks, and that's why you need, this new system that you're proposing?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole point of life is to grow, and I believe that just the smallest spark of love, even in the most horrible person, it can be the difference between the world changing or not. Because if you think about it, with mental health and everything, you look at Oprah, for example, and she has, soul sessions and Tony Robbins, and there's so many inspirational leaders out there, Jay Shetty, and they're coming together and they're really pulling people out and really doing something different with the world. And if you had a group of individuals literally from rock bottom changing and evolving for the better purpose of life, which is, growing from a horrible person that doesn't know anything about love because he was never shown the way, in life, and then watching them grow. I mean, the inspiration that would cause and the ripple effect that it could cause around the world.
That sounds really nice. I would say get the government out of it, though, because if you want people to be touched by love, you don't want the government to be involved, because they, even if they have a good intention, they've got the wrong incentives. They are not very helpful when it comes to mental health and treating people well in, government-run health facilities, crazy wards.
An unaccountable bureaucrat is is generally not going to be accountable for giving love either. Any avocation of more love in the world is not something you're going to find me on the opposing side of. I will say that mental health problems present a special challenge because people with mental health issues are sort of by their definition uncomfortable to deal with.
Yes.
Right? People just don't want to do that. So,
Well, and that could also be a familiarity thing as well, right? Like mental health professionals who have dedicated their lives to helping those people are probably a lot more comfortable dealing with them than your average, hidden angel off the street.
Sure, but in this society that continues to get more and more specialized as we go on, it seems less and less likely that people are going to be used to dealing with mental health. I don't know.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
I remain somewhat skeptical. I hope for the very best, and I'm all for adding love and wherever you can do it. Add love. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Nicholas, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. As we continue, you can bring up whatever's on your mind, and we go to the phones and also to Discord, where Sean Not Connery is on the line with us here. Sean Not Connery, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
That's disappointing.
Hey, man, you can call me Nick. It's all good. That's my real name.
Sorry,
Sean
Nick.
Not Connery is. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good, man. Anyways, I was telling you earlier, I grew up in East LA, right? And I want to talk about marijuana, especially in a state like Texas where there's a big push.
Is that where you are now? Are you in Texas now?
Yeah, I'm in Texas.
Okay.
I had to leave California because the prices are so high there, the taxes, it's oppressive, really.
Sure.
And so growing up in California, I was a conservative person, right? And but at the same time, I'm sort of a libertarian. So I believe that each person should do with their body what they want to do with their body within certain bounds. But when it comes to intoxicants, I think that, in East LA, especially where I grew up for a long time, when there was a huge crackdown in the 90s on marijuana, malt liquor was the choice intoxicant in the area. But now that it's been legalized, the marijuana market there is booming. So that's about where I stand on that. And I have to say, those people calling in earlier, those racists, those are some real scum people. I'll tell you what.
Well,
Real scum.
it's all right. And we've got the dump button, and that, takes care of it.
Well, that's good.
They only make it through to the Twitch or D-Live audience, which is very, very small compared to...
But it makes them happy.
No, I don't know. I don't know if they're that happy. One of them got so mad because he had to wait 2 hours, he gave up. So
Really?
Yeah, he threw a little fit when he left our server. So how are you watching the show or listening to the show tonight?
Oh, I'm watching it on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Right on. Hey,
I'm a big fan of... I use YouTube more than I use Twitch because honestly, Twitch is just... It's so bloated and corporate, and YouTube is as well. But until they have a better platform as an alternative that
like
Google
D-Live.
doesn't buy out.
What's the status there, Nick, on in Texas with cannabis? Because I know that it's pretty much.
Yeah, well, it depends on the area you're in. So there are more liberal hubs, or more, I guess, not totally liberal, like as in crazy liberal, but more libertarian type state, or type places in the state. So Austin and Dallas are perfect examples of that. But for the rest of the state, it depends on the person you're talking to. I would say that South Central would be the biggest obstacle. That's probably where the 40% of people who disagree with recreational and medical marijuana come from.
So wait, there's 40% in Texas are against recreational?
40% are against it, and 60% of the state is for it.
Okay.
And Senator Ted Cruz has said that he supports the state's decision, which is a really nice thing to hear because I'm sick of the government trying to get involved in our business. And Texas, Texas is one of the last free states, in my opinion.
What's the margin? Oh, you're absolutely wrong. What is the margin by which recreational would have to pass?
I'm not exactly sure, but I'm hoping by 2020 I can, go back in my house, with my friends and roll up a fat joint and
LRN.FM.
At last moment. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. As we continue, we go to Bad Slave. Bad Slave, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Still had you muted there from the last guy. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you.
Yes,
I was on Facebook today.
You got to turn down whatever it is you're listening to, dude. Otherwise, it's going to drive us insane.
You got to turn down.
Okay. Just going to turn you down then. All right, let's go to David in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, David.
You can hear that was a setup from the beginning, couldn't you?
I was pretty sure.
I was giving him the benefit of the
when
doubt.
he was excoriating the other guys for using the
malt
N-word.
liquor.
Yeah,
I had a question that I did want to ask. I'll ask it here just for the fun of it. If you're intoxicating with cannabis, how do you honor your fallen comrades if you're not intoxicating with malt liquor?
I don't know. You just blow smoke at something?
Well, is that what it
By
is?
the way,
Okay.
I don't think that it's fair to call marijuana an intoxicant because there's nothing toxic about it. Alcohol certainly is toxic. I don't think
It can
that
kill
marijuana
you.
is. I don't think it's fair to
Alcohol
call it an
can kill
intoxicant.
you, but marijuana can't.
Right.
That's what you're saying. David, sorry, go ahead. Quick.
Yeah, no problem. I had been doing a bunch of reading on the New Mexico Judge Sierra County. Ironically, in the town Truth or Consequences, if you ever heard of it,
Nice.
which is named after the game show. So Judge Smith, Truth or Consequences, which do you want?
I want it in 10 seconds. Go.
10 seconds. Anyway, the judge had lied in a bunch of different ways that I don't know that I can fit in.
You'll have to do it
10
another
seconds.
time. Thanks for the call, but I do believe a judge would lie in a bunch of different ways. Absolutely. I buy that story.
David is one of the greatest activists.
See you
when it
tomorrow
comes to
night.
judicial stuff.
FreeTalkLive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily buildings so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.